Episode 2 of the Wake Up Shot. I'm Maddy, he's Jason. Hey. You know, I love this new trend where you wear pajamas looking outfits, but they actually can be worn out. It's great, man.
I wish someone had told me I could wear my pajamas to do this.
Next app.
But honestly, I sleep in my underwear, so I don't know that anybody would
Okay,
be
don't come in there. But you'll be really, really relaxed. Being relaxed is what everybody seems to be aiming for. Like, you want a quality of life, and that's why I think we talk a lot about work-life balance here in Singapore. But recently, I heard this term called work-life harmony.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever heard of that term?
I saw an interview with Jeff Bezos, of all people, who was talking about work-life harmony. But I don't know that he's the perfect embodiment of having, any kind of harmony or balance in his life. I mean, he's basically a workaholic, right?
I mean, to get to where he is.
To get to where he is, he would have to be. So I don't know if I would trust his opinion on this topic, but he did mention the term.
Actually, it makes sense for high net worth, very successful people to talk about work-life harmony. And how I first heard about the term was recently when I was in a hotel, just going through channels, and there was this CNN interview with the billionaire star maker, what's his name, Bang Si-hyuk. He's the chairman of HYBE.
Okay.
So they are the management agency behind like some of the world's biggest K-pop groups like BTS. New Jeans.
Right.
You know New Jeans?
I don't know.
I only know BTS.
I'm too old to follow K-pop.
Yeah.
I do like Blackpink though. They're all so pretty.
Yeah, so like he's the kingmaker, right? Or the star maker. And he was asked about work-life balance, what he thought about it. And he says, I don't believe in that. Like, that's BS. Like, I believe in work-life harmony. And I thought to myself, is that a new term? So I started Googling it. And I realized that it's been around for years. Like, there are articles about work-life harmony since like 2020. And I was really curious why in Singapore you never hear it. You only hear about work-life balance. I interview a lot of people, for job interviews, and everyone talks about work-life balance. So it got me really curious, like, why aren't we talking about work-life harmony? Because, okay, let's talk about the definition of work-life harmony first, right? And how it differs from work-life balance. Unlike work-life balance, which assumes that work and life are two separate entities and that individuals should strive to achieve an equal balance between them, work-life harmony actually acknowledges that work and personal life are interconnected and that it is not always possible or desirable to maintain an equal balance between them. Rather than trying to separate work and life, work-life harmony seeks to create a synergy between them where individuals are able to integrate their personal and professional lives in a way that works best for them. How good does that sound?
I think the important thing is that before COVID, I really do think people had this idea of work and home or work.
Or they didn't know how to draw the line?
Yeah, it was but it was very separate things.
Right.
It was very separate things.
Yeah.
I feel like after COVID, I'm trying to think of how I want to make this point. After COVID, it come to the point where I think some people are saying, look, I'm willing to put in whatever hours, I'm willing to do whatever you want me to do. If you allow me to do it when I want to do it, where I want to do it, and have the flexibility in my schedule to determine how I'm going to do it. Because before, it was very much, you go to the office, you sit there, the boss tells you what to do, you do it. And then
like 9 to 5,
and then
that's
you go
your
home,
working hours.
Yeah, and then you try to recover from the humiliation of your work life. But now, it's like the same amount of work can get done, but without that extra element of degradation and having to,
well, it's still debatable. I mean, some people think
debatable.
the same amount of work is done, but some don't.
And the other thing, the idea of harmony, I like the idea of harmony because...
So are you more for work-life balance or harmony?
Well, the thing is, you just brought it up. I'm just trying to sort through it now. I'm more for harmony because what I like is the idea that in harmony, you can have many different notes working together to create a beautiful sound. That's what harmony is, right? So it's like, to me, the idea even implies that you have different people doing different things in their own way, the sounds, and it all comes together to create something beautiful. Whereas
it's part of your life. Like, yes. The thing is, work is part of your life because we need to work. I think human beings are best when we are productive because we all have gifts, we all have talent.
Especially
and we are
employees at Madly.
I mean, we have talents. I mean, you have to believe that. Like, everyone has a talent, right?
Yes.
Like, we all have a skill that we were gifted with, one or two. Some have more than one. And if they are able to use that to make money, they're going to make a lot more money than a person that's not gifted with that talent or that gift. Right? I believe that. So that's what I mean by being productive. But hopefully you are able to find what you're gifted with and then do good work in that area. And that is how you give back while making money. And if you can find that, you can achieve harmony, because then you know, they say if you do, what is that saying? Like, if you work a job that you love, you never have to work a single day in your life or something like that. So I see that in a way as, if you love your job, it's not a separate thing. And realistically, work is part of everyday life.
The problem is most people hate their jobs. But the thing about that is, why do most people hate their jobs? And I would argue that most people hate their jobs. What they hate isn't the job necessarily. It might be. But what they hate is the idea of having to commute every morning, commute back every night, sit in the same cubicle every day, listen to the same boss every day, and this very rigid structure. It might appeal to some people, but I think for a lot of people, it year after year, even if you start out liking it, it will wear you down, just the routine of it, unless you're someone who really likes routine. I really think the work-life harmony thing is, okay, I'll do what you pay me for, but I'll do it on my own time, in my own way. I'll even bring your work into my house. And that is where the harmony is. I'll do your work at my home.
But to get to that stage where you dictate your terms, you have to be you have to be of a certain position, which means you have had to have paid your dues. You must have proven your worth to the company, or you are actually the boss of a company. That's the reason why, you know, when you were quoting Jeff Bezos, I'm like, there's a reason for that. Because if you look at all the high net worth individuals, the bosses, like this hype record, you know, chairman, I mean, they're all bosses. That's why they're able to achieve work-life harmony. They can talk about work-life harmony because it's their own terms, right?
I think it's actually would be wise for the bosses and the leaders of these companies to allow their employees to have a similar sort of freedom. I really do, because I do think that people produce best. I mean, they need a little fear. You need a bit of carrot and a bit of stick. But ideally what you want are people who it's like, okay, I've given you the freedom to do what you're supposed to do. Now, either you do it, in which case you'll be well compensated, or you don't do it, in which case you'll be fired. Like, once you've given people their freedom to find some sort of harmony in their work and life, then it's up to them to have the responsibility. Because here's the thing, right? In large corporations, and we've both worked for one, you're in a way treated like children. It's like, do you really need to supervise adults to do what they're supposed to do? Do you really need to be keeping track of their keyboard strikes, when they go to the lunch, when they come back from lunch, all this stuff? It really is treating like people
maybe
like children.
Not in a big brother way, but I do think that boundaries are important, right? For anyone of any age, in any situation, I think boundaries is what prevents us from absolute chaos. So I think freedom, yes, but like, what kind of freedom are you talking about? Like, are you talking about freedom of time? Are you talking about the freedom to autonomy, having autonomy over your work? That's also freedom, right? So for example, if you talk about retail staff, you can't have that same kind of freedom as, say, for example, an engineer or an office worker who can actually take their work home maybe twice a week and work from home and can be equally productive, if not more. A retail staff can't do that. So for a retail staff, freedom would mean autonomy. For example, 5% discount to work with, you can decide whether you want to give it to this client or not. Example, you have the autonomy to decide how you want to deal with a complaint, right? You have the power, you have the authority to deal with it because I trust you, bearing in mind that, okay, these are the company ethos, and if you know what they are and you bear that in mind, then those are the boundaries. and you have the freedom within that.
Yeah. Freedom for different occupations definitely
Exactly.
will look different for
Exactly.
everyone. Like you say, for retail employees, they can't have the flexi workplace, for example.
Exactly. You'll be fired,
Yeah.
or you'll never go anywhere.
It's not
You'll
like
never
you
be
go-
promoted,
You go
right?
into a shoe store and then you have to call the guy.
Yeah.
I'd like to buy some shoes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You know, it just wouldn't
Yeah,
work.
exactly.
So some people have more physically oriented jobs where their presence is absolutely
Yeah,
necessary.
exactly.
But I would argue that I'd say the split is maybe around 50-50 of people who have to have a physical presence in their jobs and people who don't. Because you think of like construction workers, it's physical, restaurant workers, it's physical, retail.
So like for
it's
freedom,
physical.
it's not about like, I decide when I want to work.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
or where you want to work or any of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think in the new economy, when, say, white collar, for lack of a better term, or office workers are getting this sort of flexibility in terms of their workplace, in terms of their hours and that, I think the thing is that's going to make the job, it's going to make it tougher for employers to find the right people, because people are going to be much more choosy and they're going to want to have their own say in these sort of things. The good thing about this is I think this also will help other workers who do more physical jobs, because as the employment market frees up here, I feel like it'll also free up down here. And I feel like if you can't be compensated in terms of your work hours and this sort of thing, you can be compensated in terms of your pay, in terms of your perks, and this kind of thing, you know?
So here's the thing, right? When you want work-life balance, especially you're fresh out of school, you're looking for a job, and the first thing you ask about is work-life balance before you've even proven your worth to any company. Then you also want eventually a higher position to have more responsibility at work, and at the same time, more pay. Is it realistic to then ask for work-life balance? You know what I'm saying? It's that what I'm seeing is that the people who want work-life balance, like work-life balance seems to be something that is talked about a lot, right? You hear it a lot. But if you ask everybody who wants work-life balance, say, okay, but do you want to climb the corporate ladder? Do you want to make more money? Do you want to have a higher position? They all say yes. So that's why I'm saying is that, but can you actually have your cake and eat it in this case? And would work-life harmony be a better option, a better way of looking at work that will get you that promotion, that will get you that higher paycheck, that will help you climb the corporate ladder, because then you stand out because you don't treat your work as separate from your life. You love your job, it is harmonious in a way, or you try to find harmony. You give when the job requires you to give, because it's not all about balance. Not all the time. You can't, like, at work, there are periods of time when more is required of you. Maybe there's more jobs, maybe there are more projects, so you end up working more during that time. And then during the quiet time, that's when you take your break. Maybe that's when you get to go back early. But if you're expecting a balance every single day, is it kind of unrealistic? That's what I'm asking.
I think we can go back to this again in the fact that the idea of balance is much more rigid, and it implies opposing forces. Because you have the thing over here that weighs 5 pounds, and if you want to have the balance equal out, you have to find something else that weighs
and
5 pounds.
life doesn't
and
work
it's
that
like
way, right?
two different things. But that's right. And if you're talking about harmony also implies, I feel like, the nature of the work itself and how it jives with your particular psyche. So if you're the sort of person who, go back to your retail example. If you're the sort of person who loves fashion, right? Say you really are you read all the magazines, maybe you studied it a bit. If you end up selling in an upscale boutique, say, if you end up being a salesperson in an upscale boutique, you're working in retail, and we all know that that's a tough job, a tough and demanding job, and sometimes the compensation isn't as great as it could be. But I feel like there's a certain amount of harmony there, because you are working in an industry. You might be working on the first rung of the industry, but you are working in the industry that you love. So in a sense, there's a harmony there, and you can bring you can have a sense of work-life harmony because your interests are in line with the work that you're doing, right? And if you do love it and you love fashion, right, you could go from being the girl who's on the sales floor to maybe being the manager of the store to maybe working in the corporate office. Maybe you could be taking a fashion course on the side, getting into design, who knows what, but at least you're in that. There's a harmony between your interests and the industry. And I feel like that's what I love about the word harmony is it's so broad and it can apply to so many different things. Now, if say you are this fashion girl and you're into fashion and you're working in a clothes store, you will be willing, I think, to put in more hours and to really give more of yourself to that
because
job.
you're interested in your job.
Because you're interested in your job. So and every day, different clothes are coming in.
So I think that's where the harmony is. Like
Yes.
if you have the interest, I guess it starts with the interest, right?
I think it has
and,
to.
And of course the fire, like when you're fresh out of school and you get your dream job or you're in an industry that you've always wanted to be in,
Yes.
there is a certain enthusiasm, at
Yes.
least at the beginning,
Yeah.
until they crush your soul.
Yeah.
And then you realize it's not everything you've expected
And
it
that's
to be.
in every industry. It doesn't matter how
I think
fun
at
you
some
think
point
is.
it does. But
Yeah.
the thing is, at the very beginning, at least if you don't see work separate from life and there's no like cut-off point, you do what it takes, but you enjoy doing it because you enjoy elements of your job, whether
Yeah.
it's your colleagues, whether it's your boss, whether it's the company, whether it's the job itself. But hopefully you find one thing in there that makes you love your job and therefore gives you joy. Right? You focus on the one thing that gives you joy, hopefully, and not all the other things that make you miserable. But you have to pay your dues to a certain extent
Yes.
in order to achieve a certain balance. But until you've gone through the extremes, how do you ask for balance from the get-go? So I think that's what a lot of these bosses are saying is that aim for work-life harmony instead of work-life balance, especially if you still want a promotion, especially if you still want to make more money than your peers, then work must be part of your life. It cannot be separate.
I think that's where we're both getting to. One of the best run businesses I've ever seen was Dairy Queen I worked at when I was a teenager. What I loved about working at Dairy Queen is we were all young, we were all having fun, everybody did their job, everybody's role was very clear. You weren't expected to do more or less, you just did that job.
Yeah.
What I also liked is the manager was part of the team. We could all see the manager was right there with us. He was working harder than anybody else.
Of course, he has to work more, right?
Yes.
You get to go off
Yeah.
and you get your work-life balance.
Yes.
But then the thing is, you weren't thinking about taking the manager's job. That's what I'm
Right.
saying, right?
But what I'm saying is like this is what like working in fast food is considered one of the lowest rungs.
Yeah.
But honestly, when I look back on my life, and I don't want this to sound patronizing or what, that was really one of the best times of my life. We had great parties after work. We'd clean up the restaurant, go back. Like I didn't like working with the customers and that because I'm a bit of an introvert, and there was parts of the job I didn't like. But overall, it was. I did have my work-life balance and harmony, and I think the harmony also came from the fact that we were all such great friends. So that's the great thing. When you say balance, that always implies work is over there, I'm over here.
Yeah.
And there's always those opposing forces, 50%, 50%.
Yeah.
But when you say harmony, there's all different ways that you can harmonize.
Yeah.
And like I said, about my niece in the restaurant, so she studies food science and now she's working in a sushi restaurant. And it's like, she doesn't want to work in the sushi restaurant her whole life, but it's in the field that she's sort of in, and there is a certain amount of harmony there, and it makes sense for her to be working there. And you know, I just think that people have, when you say harmony, if you use your imagination, you can broaden it out to make it fit your particular situation.
I'm just really worried when I see so many graduates that come out of school. And when they go for a job interview, the first thing they ask about is work-life balance. And that's why I want to talk about work-life harmony. Because these same graduates also want more out of their career. So you can't have it both. If you say, you know what, I'm really happy to kind of be in this same place 5 years down the road. I just want minimal pay, inflation rate increments annually. You know, I don't really have any ambition. I don't want to manage people. I'm just happy to just go with the flow. Work-life balance, you know, I come in at a certain time and I go off. Do not call me after that. No expectations. Sure, have your work-life balance. But then 5-10 years down the road, you can't actually complain and say, oh, why did so-and-so get ahead of me?
Yeah.
You know, that's what I'm saying. So what you need to do, I suppose, I mean, one of the ways, I guess it's easier said than done, is find a job that you love, some element of.
Find an industry that you love.
Yeah, maybe you can start there. Find
Yeah.
an industry you love. Or sometimes maybe it's not the industry that you love, but somehow you have a great mentor who kind of pluck you out from obscurity and say, work under me. And then you have so much fun working under him, even though it's an industry you never thought about.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, either way, but there should be something in your job that you love, and you find satisfaction in, that you can harmoniously incorporate into your life. That is part of your life. It doesn't have to be a full identity, but then it's not separate entities as well, where you have to cut off at a certain time or a certain day, because then that allows you to grow in that job and to actually, you know, have career progression.
I will say this, Maddy. If you're in a sort of career or job where your number one priority is work-life balance, you might be in the wrong job. Because when I was a writer, one of the reasons I was able to survive so long as a movie writer is because I feel like I love movies more than anyone, and I loved writing about movies more than anyone. And I saw a lot of people come and go over the years in different places I was at, and a lot of them just weren't as desperate as I was to keep that job.
Or ambitious.
Ambitious, and didn't appreciate it as much as I did. Yeah. I'm like, every day I get to write about movies and watch movies, I'm like, I'm the luckiest man alive. And then when I was on the DJ,
you did what was needed, right?
I'd stay,
you didn't go, okay, 6 o'clock, I gotta go, don't call me.
Exactly,
right?
I would stay very late. Now, did I have work-life balance? No, you know.
But did you have fun?
I neglected my children.
We're not saying that you do.
No,
but
what I'm saying is, especially when you're young, and especially even before you've had kids, I think your goal should be to find a job where work-life balance isn't even a consideration, because you love doing the job so much that you just want to go all the time.
Yeah, and what you're seeking is, then we're talking about work-life harmony, which I'm really hoping that we will hear more of in Singapore instead of work-life balance, because I think it's unrealistic, especially if you want more out of your career. So let's talk about you for a moment.
Yeah.
I mean, you made the career switch, and it's quite drastic. You've done it a few times. You know, from writer to radio DJ, and then now you are embarking on a career path as an animator, right?
Yes.
Is it animator?
Yeah.
Okay. So the thing is, you were talking about how you love your job so much that you don't even want to break. You wish there were more hours in a day to just keep on doing your animation.
Yes.
So exactly, right? I mean, where's the work-life balance?
Okay, there's no work-life balance because all I really want to do is work. But this comes back to what we were talking about in the first place. I'm working from home right now, which means I get to see my wife and kids a lot, and I'm able to interact with their lives. But I'm on the computer almost all day, every day, until I crash and burn and have to take a few days off. But I feel like even with the amount of work I'm doing, and it's nonstop, and I'm actually doing research to find out, like I'm always doing research with my AI, is there any way to work at peak performance 24 hours a day? And it's like, even my computer is saying no, and that's a computer. So I feel like I'm even though I'm overdoing it in terms of the amount of work I'm doing, I do feel like I have harmony because I'm in my home. And I do get to see my kids, and I do get to see my wife.
I'm going to point out something, okay? It's an alternative way of thinking, right? I think that whether you work from home or not is irrelevant in your case, and I tell you why. It's actually for very purely selfish reasons that you feel this harmony. Because for your wife and kids, for example, you feel better because there's less guilt, right? Because you're at home, it's like, I'm here anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, but actually you're not really engaged with them. You're not actually present,
Yeah.
right? Because you're working all the time,
Yeah.
which I don't know how they feel, but they might feel even more frustrating, like you're here, but you're not here. So whether or not you do that, the fact of the matter is you love your job so much that you can't draw the line, right? And that's great to a certain extent, but I don't think it has anything to do with you working from home, because it doesn't actually. I don't think your family's grateful for it.
Well, actually, lately the cats have been driving me crazy, and I keep telling my wife I need to get an office.
Exactly,
space.
but if you had an office, for example, if you had an office, and say you work overtime because again you love your job and you do what it takes, what's needed, right? Maybe you have a project, you have a client, and so you work more while you are working to finish this project, and then after the project, you're more free and you take your family on a holiday. I think they would prefer that. So again, it's got nothing to do with where you work from, you know what I mean? It's just that, is there a balance? That's what I'm trying to say. It's like, not really, because you do what it takes, but you are happy doing that because it works for you and it works towards your goals. Your goals of having your own company, you know, being financially free, working on your own terms, right? Being your own boss, calling your own shots, but doing what you love. And when you have work, it's a blessing. It's a privilege to have that job. But you also know that there will be downtime when you may have less projects or no projects at all. That's the time that you take a break.
That's a great point, and honestly, that's a great point. Like the way I'm living now is basically this is the great thing about switching careers in midlife, is that you sort of get a new lease on life and you sort of get to be young again. So you go back to that, you know, Sigma grind set, they talk about it on YouTube. But you go back to that thing where you're like striving towards a goal, striving to get something done, and it reinvigorates you. It wakes you up in a way, and it makes you feel better about your own life. And it's like, the thing is, right, I might not always be present for my family, but I'm not cranky all the time, I don't think. Like, I'm in a better mood because I'm doing something I love, so I'm really pushing it. And I do feel like if you do want to accomplish something in this life, like you said, where we start off, work-life balance is impossible. Yes. If you want to do something special.
If you want to accomplish something, or you want to stand out from the rest.
Yeah. If you want to be a normal person with a normal job and live a humble life.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Then that's fine.
Yeah.
And then
but it has to be in line with your goals, right? You have to be realistic about it.
That's right. That's right. But I feel like in that case, maybe you can start thinking about work-life balance and start, like, for people who are doing jobs that are not easy jobs to love and they're very demanding, you know, I think there has to be some consideration of they have to be taken care of in a different way. But for anybody who's really striving to get somewhere on their own, wants to climb the corporate ladder, wants to start their own business, wants to be an artist, wants to be a sportsman, wants to be...
You want more out of your career.
You want more of your career. Work-life balance is not possible.
I think it's an illusion.
It's an illusion. Yeah, work-life harmony, I think I can see what you mean now. Work-life harmony is something that you can strive for. But you have to define what harmony means on your own terms, because it will be different for everybody.
And of course it helps if you like your job,
I think
or you like some element.
I think we solved this issue. You don't have to listen to any more podcasts. I think we've solved this issue.
No, but I would like to hear more talk about work-life harmony instead of work-life balance. And hopefully we changed some minds today or gave you a new perspective.
Yeah, well, I changed my mind today already, so there you go.
Yeah, forget work-life balance. Go for work-life harmony.
Yeah.